In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King. Tonight on America in Black and White, we sit down with a man whose life represents discipline, reinvention, and the power of building generational value. Dr. Leon Grove is not simply a financial professional, he is a strategist, a veteran, a professor, a pastor, and a visionary entrepreneur who has spent nearly 3 decades helping families secure their futures. As the CEO and founder of Grove Financial Group Incorporated, a service-disabled veteran-owned firm established in 1997, Dr. Grove has guided families and retirees across the Gulf Coast through the complexities of financial planning, retirement readiness, and long-term wealth protection. His work is rooted in service to the community, service to the country, and service to the people who trust him with their financial well-being. But Dr. Grove is also a builder of systems. Through Webtech Design LLC, he helps businesses leverage AI automation, digital infrastructure, and web technology to grow smarter, faster, and more efficiently. His entrepreneur journey is a blueprint for reinvention, proving that you can evolve without abandoning your original calling. A former college finance professor, a pastor, and a military veteran, Dr. Grove brings together academic rigor, spiritual grounding, and real-world experience. His story is one of resilience, innovation, and the courage to create multiple streams of value in a world that often tries to limit what Black men can do. Tonight, we explore his life, his leadership, his companies, and the lessons he carries from the battlefield, the classroom, the pulpit, and the boardroom. This is episode 67. This is America in Black and White, and this is a conversation built for transformation. Let's welcome Dr. Leon Grove to the show. Hello, sir. I can't hear you.
Thank you, Brother King. Thank you for the introduction. Well said. Thank you.
Well, you're very much welcome. Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we get into the show?
Yeah, so let's maybe bring in the question in the show, and hopefully they have a discovery of me through this process.
Yes, sir. Well, let's get into it. And what I like to start with is I like to give the audience an opportunity to get to know who Dr. Grove was before you became Dr. Grove. So can you tell us, who is Dr. Leon Grove before the titles and the accomplishments?
So I'm a young kid that grew up in the housing project of Mobile, Alabama. And my story is the story of the community that I grew up in. And I never forgot where I came from.
Oh, wow. Dr. Grove, hold on one second. There's a young lady here that's put this in the chat. She's saying hi, and she's saying answer her or she's leaving. I guess her name is CC something Smith Powell. I hope CC is okay now, but I thought maybe this was somebody that was trying to reach out to you. Um, can you tell us what early experiences shaped your understanding of discipline and purpose?
So after leaving my community, I went into the United States Marine Corps, and Marine Corps instilled a lot of discipline, accountability, and brotherhood. And so it really gave me purpose on my day-to-day activity and how to live my life. It really developed a more rigorous framework, who I eventually became before I put on the title of Dr. Leon Grove.
So, when you think about your time in the military, when you did that as a very young man, can you tell us how has the discipline and the structure of the Marine Corps shaped you today?
So it's very impactful. It actually gave me the attention to detail on the things that I need to get done. It gave me a focused attitude on the process and allowed me to continue that aspect of my life to um, really just um, root to all those things that I embodied during that time, which is was family, studies, looking ahead into the future as to what I wanted to become. Didn't know exactly how that's going to pan out, but it eventually surfaced into who I am today.
So, how did your upbringing influence your drive for financial literacy and leadership?
Well, we grew up in a very poor community, and not only me, but everybody around me. And as a young boy, I always said, I want to learn more about the systems that people lift themselves from this poverty into a better society, a better community, um, someone who was in business to help not only themselves but to help other people.
Well, Dr. Grove, I think a lot of us got that same story because, I think we were all behind the eight ball, but there was an enormous amount of us that decided we wanted to do something different. And so, can
Right.
you tell us that is it that your time in the military or when you went to Marine Corps that you had the plan to do the things that you're doing now, or what triggered these things that made you become an entrepreneur?
I really didn't have a plan. I just had a seed, a God given seed that said, hey, I need to do this. I didn't know why, but I continued to go to those online classes or the off duty education, those college courses. And I kept having the drive to just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And, but God had the plan. I just didn't know what the plan was. I just kept having that faith that I had to do this in order to get to wherever God was leading me to.
Okay. So, what role did family play in shaping your values?
So, family plays a very big role. I grew up without a father, a teenage mother who's single, and she instilled in me a lot, um, in that some things I was going to have to do for myself in order to make it in this life. And so it really structured me and grounded me. And one of the things I had in the back of my mind growing up, I wouldn't want to wish this on my child growing up. The life that I had growing up in the housing project, I wanted to be there for my children. And so, as a father, and you'll learn a little bit more about me as we go on through this session, but I did not want my child to be in that situation that I grew up in.
What was the first major challenge you had to overcome as a young man?
As a young man trying to um, find a blueprint or find a footprint in life, understanding who I was, what I was built for, and what I could achieve. I didn't know that. No one ever really told me what I was built for, what I could really achieve in this life. Um, to be honest with you, I didn't think I would get past 19 growing up in the projects. And so I didn't know any idea as that future me beyond the age of 19.
Wow. And thinking about, because you and I are both from Mobile, and
Yes.
and just thinking about, when you say growing up in the projects, and life was lifing, and a lot of us, a lot of young men, a lot of young boys didn't actually have the understanding of what it is, to become a man. And so, like, when you strike out and you want to do something better and different for yourself, like you did, and like I did as well, when you think about that, what was the one thing that made you say, I've got to go do something different?
Well, I can tell you the multiple times that I nearly lost my life made me convinced that I had to do something different. And so um, that was a situation that was um, maybe a situation I should have been in. And had it gone a little bit differently, I wouldn't be here today. And so when those situations come up, they are surreal. And it's like, what am I doing here? How did I get here? And how can I get out? And I promised myself and a few other good folks, if I ever get out, I will never find my way back in that situation where I'm challenged between life and death.
So, how did your military experience shape your worldview?
Oh wow! So military experience. I was able to travel. I was able to meet new people. I was able to go into foreign lands, and I actually saw a bigger scope of the world out there. So it was like a a multitude of things that I was exposed to. And I said, there are there are opportunities out there that can afford us to um, look beyond our situation from where we come from to look for a better opportunity ahead.
So, what lessons from the military still guide your leadership today?
Those lessons, integrity, um, fortitude, um, um, the ability to move forward even when times are hard or times are challenging, and so um, tact, esprit de corps, um, just that gung ho spirit of just being able to move forward, um, even in challenging times that we're in today. Um, there's still opportunity that people can move forward, um, even with limited resources. There's still opportunities to move forward. So those opportunity uh, in the Marine Corps gave me that tenacity to move forward.
So, what inspired your transition from military service to entrepreneurship?
Well, that's interesting because as a young man, I always wanted to be a business owner. Um, and some people ascribe to work for others, but I always wanted to wear a tie and a suit and conduct business. And coming out of the military, I always said, "Hey, I'm going to have a business. I didn't know what business, but I knew that I wanted to have a business of some sort. So I was inspired, uh, whether I was going to be in a consultant. I didn't necessarily knew I was going to be in finance. I was going to be in business in some way, form, or fashion.
Okay. Well, here's another, I guess, a comment. Hello. This is from Erica Louise saying buenas. I'm assuming that means hello.
Okay. Hello.
um, can you tell us how did your time as a pastor influence your approach to business and service?
Well, that allows the opportunity to not only service people in their spiritual need, sometimes it is to service people in their time of need of grief or time of need of, just needing um, someone to reassure them. So, but it gave me that ability to have that understanding of grace and mercy to allow them to have a shoulder to lean on, have a calm voice to speak to reason. And so, um, pastoring is one of the greatest things that you can um, get into besides finance. And so, it is a humbling experience, I can tell you that.
Well, let me ask you this because when I just think of, the work that you do, because it's so people oriented, were you always a people person or was that something that you had to learn?
Well, I believe I was always a people person. However, I grew up very introverted. And so speaking in public wasn't my um, thing. I actually had to grow into that. And so, in other words, I'm an introvert around other extroverts. But when I have a bunch of introverts around me, I actually become extroverted. And so it was some challenges, but I grew into that aspect of helping people. And to get more into the answer to your question, when I grew up in the housing project, I saw everyone as someone who needed help, even myself. And I said one day I want to be in that capacity to help somebody along the way, um, so they can be lifted from the situation. Um, and so those careers actually lend those opportunity for me to help others.
Okay. What is one defining moment that changed the trajectory of your life?
Uh, that's interesting. I really haven't thought of that, but I would say my transition out of the military, um, I come to understand a world that was different. So in the military, I was able to move in a certain capacity, but when I got into civilian life, I wasn't able to move as fluently as I did when I was in the military. And so I had to understand how my life was going to be shaped moving forward. And so um, I think that was a defining moment because without the military, I felt a little lost, but I had to understand my bearing and to move forward.
Now, I want to transition first into one of your new moments here. That is, you have just released a book. And let's talk about your work as an author. What inspired you to become an author, and when did you realize you had a book inside of you?
That's interesting. Well, I think about 12, 15 years ago, I wanted to write a book on the revival. But the way I thought about it was revival, how it changed people in the congregation, churches, things like that. And so I actually went around and interviewed other pastors, and they really didn't um, respond to me in the way that I thought that they would. And so that lingered for about 15 years. And then all of a sudden, I was inspired by the Holy Spirit that I just need to start writing because whatever is going to transpire is going to help somebody in the way of this book.
Oh, wow. So, in doing that research, what were some of the things that you learned from the other pastors compared to yourself that could be beneficial, for the people or the people that's in your congregation?
So, in that research, I didn't use any of the material that any of the pastors gave me. So, the book was actually totally different from what I thought it was going to be. The book
Oh,
is actually dealing with the renewal of the black man, the black family, and the black community. And so that's where I found my niche in writing and understanding what happened to us over the years and how we have been shaped and formed into the life that we carry now. And throughout the book, you'll see much on fatherhood because I told you I was absent of a father growing up, but much on the fatherhood and much on connecting the man with himself to carry those traits that we talked about, being responsible to the family, being there for the children, um, and just having a totally revised man that you can count on.
so, Dr. Grove, as you mentioned that, and what I think about is I think about today's times, and we know how the struggle, especially with the black man, has been over these last 20 plus years. And so, as you think about that, and you created this wonderful book, this wonderful tool that most men should be using, what did you want them to get from this book?
Well, one of the things I wanted them to get is this is a blueprint. A lot of men wake up in the morning, no one told them who they were or who or what they was built for. And so this book is a revival to release all the stuff that's piled upon them. You know, the weight of debt, the weight of depression, the weight of systematic control, and to release that ether, that fire that burns within it, in every black man. The saying they can look beyond their situation or the circumstance and do better than what they've done in the past. And my life has been every year I'm trying to improve on something. What is it I can improve on this year versus last year? What's the measuring tool? So this is a blueprint.
So, what themes or messages do you focus on in your writing?
So the messages are a combination of uh, here's how the situation has been stacked against you.
Okay.
Okay. We get that historical aspect out of the way. A lot of it is not your fault. However, what it is, your responsibility is to carry the torch today. And how can you build on a better future for tomorrow? It is all of our responsibility, but how can we be accountable to not only ourselves, but to our family, to our community. And so it just continued to build upon a theme of accountability throughout the book. Not that you need to blame anyone else, or not that you got to put any other race down, but you have the opportunity today to build upon yourself and have the accountability to move forward.
I think that's really interesting. So basically, and wanting to have that calm, but to move strong, is that the gist or the message that you want them to have? Because I know, a lot of times for a lot of people, it's kind of difficult to forget things from historical context. So in saying that, what is it that you're saying here in the book that they need to get that message to understand that you can move without that?
So, one of the things from a pastoral standpoint in the areas of forgiveness, forgiveness releases a lot of ills that we carry, you know. And if we don't release some of the um, ills that we carry through forgiveness, then it keeps us in a cage and sometimes drive us to a rage where we just get confused as to what we should do. So that aspect is in the book. We should never forget our history. We should never forget the people who charted the way for us to get to where we are today. However, understanding the system help us to move forward from that and work on what only you can do yourself. A lot of people that I come across over the years are one conversation away for understanding who they was built for. And I wake up for every black man looking for that conversation as to who he was built for.
Wow. So, how does your background in finance, ministry, and military service influence your authorship?
So you mentioned all of those. They all are one. They're just in different arenas. But that aspect helps me um, provide a uh, written area of service where people can get an understanding of my 30 plus years sitting across the table from very capable men and women um, who didn't have a footprint. And I saw that narrative over and over and over again. And I wanted to do something to change that and say, hey, this is my contribution. This is what I saw. Here's the narrative or the blueprint that you can use to get you to that next level.
So, again, with all the things that you do, which are so people oriented, and you're able to do like a million and one things, and these are all really good things. When you just think about, when you wrote this book here, to help the black man, and if you used any of these concepts, some of this prior history as well, can you tell us what was the importance, of the additions of these other things and why they are so relevant to black men moving forward?
When you say addition to other things, what are you mentioning?
Well, I mean, like, when we talk about your work as in finance, your work in the church, your work in the military, how you're able to add these all this into your book to help black men move forward.
Okay, I got you. One, every black man needs to be spiritually connected. Wherever that religion leads you, then that spiritual connection is foremost. And then the military brought in that discipline and accountability as well as brotherhood. And finance really takes us to another level as to building wealth and giving them an understanding as to um, you are what you think about. You are where you. So if you don't think you deserve wealth, you won't get it. If you only think money is to be spent, you will spend it. If you only think that money is to survive, then you'll just use it for survival. But if you think of money as a point of um, legacy, then you'll build a legacy.
Okay.
See where I'm going with that? Yep.
And so, what gap in the marketplace or community did you feel your books needed to fill?
So the gap is between capability and covenant. Between capability and I mentioned, I come across the table with a lot of capable men that just didn't have the framework. And then the
Okay.
covenant actually lends to what happens today and beyond. In other words, building a future, not just for next year, but I'm talking about for the next 5, 10, 15 years from now. That's the covenant.
Yes, sir. I love that because I think once you start going down that road, that long road, and you're thinking long term, believe me, there's a lot of evolution and creativity as you're going down that long road.
And that is so absolutely correct. And then there's a lot of adjustments that you have to make. And the pain is that we have to make those adjustments and continue to pivot and move on. And one of the reasons I say that because we have our ancestors who had struggles way more than we had. They had challenges and opportunity far limited than what we have today. And so this book has helped the Black man understand what's inside of him already. You know, not that it's going to put it in, it's already inside of him to help him
So,
move forward.
so in creating this masterpiece, what part did innovation play in this?
Let's see. You bring in some very interesting questions. The part of innovation that brought into this book is understanding the process and moving forward. In other words, taking someone through a psychological standpoint, taking them through a philosophical, then taking them through a entrepreneurial standpoint. And so you have to kind of take those in steps. For instance, chapter 2 actually gets into not only the religion aspect, but get into uh, the man and his woman and how valuable the two of them together are in creating this ecosystem that we're talking about. And that what actually came out of that innovation is an ecosystem. So we have echoes from the past of these things that have happened to us, but considering that we're going to build in a way to we're going to build an ecosystem and help our people move forward, not only this generation, but future generation. Because once the Black man is revived, he is also to carry this on to his children and to his grandchildren to move forward.
I love that so much. And so, just from that last answer, just in following through with that, can you tell us what is the importance of the ecosystem? Because I don't think a lot of people understand what that is.
Well, the importance of the ecosystem is that in spirit, when we move, we should move together in harmony, fluently. We should have the same message. We should have a revived Black man who is committed, accountable, who love his brother, desire for his brother to move up the ladder and not have a crab-like mentality. The community wins because the whole community moves up. And if you don't mind, if I give you a case in point,
Yes.
I was talking to some leaders locally, and I was asking them, how many Black businesses do you have in your congregation? And out of the 12 that was there, no one could tell me they had more than 3 or 4. You know the difference between the white congregations and the Black congregations? Generally, they have many businesses, and those businesses are making anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15, $20 million. If we don't build the ecosystem and to make sure we have businesses in our community, then we won't have Black businesses giving back to the community. It would be like a wasteland, like many of our communities are. And we look upon it because those communities are the very community that shaped us growing up. It was a little bit different because we had a village to rely on as opposed to, the communities that I see now. They're not quite that way as it was when we grew up.
Oh, you as you say that, I mean, it helps me to think and to feel really good about this work that I do with this show. Because as you mentioned the ecosystems, I mean, that speaks volumes. Because when we're talking about reaching out to the masses like that, and we want to pull them all in because we want everybody to be on the same page. Sometimes there's like some things that are missing sometimes because a
Right.
lot of people seem like they forget that they missed a message or they didn't understand something. How do we make sure that people understand the message that's being sent?
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of voices out there. And one of the voices that really cripple our people is the social media, the TikToks, the Instagram, the Facebook. We spend more time there than telling our stories to our children and our grandchildren. We have to be able to internalize what's happening to us, to be able to share the story about how I got over. I didn't just get here out of the vacuum. Someone didn't just rub on a bottle and say, Grove, poof, appear. But there were some pains and there were some struggles that I had to endure over the years to get to where I'm at. But now my understanding is now pristine. My eyes are now wide open. My vision is much clearer than it was before. And we need to be able to get back and share that story with our fellow man, our children, and the people in our community so we can all come up together.
So, how do you approach writing for audiences who may feel intimidated by financial or technical topics?
Well, generally, I just put it in plain language. Um, I I thought about this when I got my doctorate degree back in 2010 as to how I wanted to be. I wanted to be able to talk to the very common man in the language that he or she understand, but I also want to be able to talk to the very wealthy man in the languages that he or she understood. And so, what I've written is for everyone, regardless of what level they're on, to understand um, and how to process wealth, how to move forward and build a legacy. But this book started with the revival process from the inward part to the outward part to fix those social, psychological, philosophical aspect of the man until he or she is totally revived before we get into the building wealth.
So, what has been the most rewarding response you've received from a reader?
Well, one of the most rewarding responses uh, that they received the book, first of all, and they're taking pictures of the book. And I may actually create a profile with people actually standing in their living room with a copy of the book, as many as possible. Um, but, some of the rewarding aspect of what I've already received is that um, they didn't know, or because I'm sort of private, so I didn't share with anyone what I was delving into. And then when they read some of the aspect and say, "Hey, I didn't know you was aligned to that topic. I didn't know that framework was in you." And so, how did all of that come out? How did all of that come about? And so, um, that aspect is one of the elements of surprise that I always had for myself.
Right. Um, how do you balance storytelling with education in your writing style?
Well, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. Um, I just get into an aspect of where I want the reader to go, and I start developing the topic, and as I develop the topic, you always go back and edit, and you just kind of create a path. Where is this path leading this person? In other words, I want to make sure they have all of the concept, all of the precepts that I want them to have in excuse me, in order to understand the basis for me being able to present a position of empowerment to help them move forward.
So, what advice do you give aspiring authors who want to turn their expertise into a published work?
Well, my thoughts are for them to continue to develop their work, continue to get an understanding as to what they want the reader to get out of their work, and to be a benefit to the reader. Um, Now, there are some people that writes, you know, um, things that's entertaining. I was always a person that liked to read self-help book to help myself, or if I'm going to write, it's going to write to help somebody. I was never an entertainer in the sense. So you got many genres of writers, um, but I say that to say, and I don't want to limit anyone on their writing style and what they do. But for me, I just took people down a path to help them in their understanding as to where we are as a people and how we can move forward um, through the ecosystem of life.
So, how do you see your books contributing to your legacy of service and empowerment?
Well, that's an interesting question. I really never looked at my legacy per se, but these are contributions that I didn't make to society, but these contributions are something that uh, God influenced me to do. And so when I look at it in that way, I look at it as God is going to get the glory from the writing of the work. I'm just an instrument, I'm just a vessel. And so, again, I mentioned it as a blueprint. And so, if you look at it that way, um, you'll be less focused on glorifying self, looking for legacy for yourself, and say, hey, I did what God wanted me to do, and I made that contribution, and He's going to do the finished work in that.
So, what future writing projects or book ideas are you currently developing?
So I actually have this book is actually part of a trilogy. What comes behind it is breaking cycles and building wealth. And the book that comes behind that is The Village We Lost. And that village was lost at a cost. However, it was lost, but um, it can be regained, and it actually highlights some things in that. So that is the trilogy, and each book had its own weight and taking you through time and space and bringing you forward. But then the fourth book I just finished just a couple of days ago, and it is the Covenant of Change. And that covenant is really about having a revival as a way of life, not just a seasonal thing that most churches do once a year, but having it as a way of life.
Well, let's transition over to your work in financial literacy and financial education. What does financial literacy mean to you on a personal and professional level?
Personal is really understanding how money works, how money can help solve issues or problems. And on a professional basis, is understanding how the um, financial products or in the systems can help you, but also find out about how innovative things can help you move forward as well. And so these are tools that can be used to help people move forward in their life.
So, when you think about the people in the community that you like to help, and we think about as we're talking about financial literacy, why is it so important that you teach the community financial literacy?
Well, it's important because we need to understand um, how we use money as tool to leverage or to impact our surroundings and to move us forward, um, that we may have better living conditions, that we may have better educational systems. So um, some are the belief that the traditional systems work great. Um, Sometimes I differ in that. There are ways in which we can improve upon that if we had those financial resources. Um, there are challenges right now that people are relying on the federal or the state system to provide food banks. Well, we can create food banks ourselves if you had the resources poured back in your community. But to also to understand how those dollars play or cycle back in our community to continue to strive for the betterment of our community. But if our dollar only survive one day and it goes out, then we're actually coming from a deficit situation. Our dollars need to change 7, 10, 15 times in our community so everybody can have use of that dollar.
And so, but as you mentioned that, and when I think about, you saying about the dollar circulating, it makes me think so much about, why we don't have our own established businesses in our communities to keep those dollars. So, if you can explain to us or give us an idea as to what's your opinion about Black businesses in Black communities, but also how our resources have been are so diminished that it's going to be hard for us to get these things back.
Yeah, so I don't think they're going to be hard. I think we need to change our mindset and start focusing on our long-term strategy for our community, and how we want it to develop. But let's take a step back and understand what had happened. I grew up in a community where the avenue was a striving commerce. You had stores, you had um, all kind of you had movie theater. We had two movie theaters. Everything was there. But then someone in their infinite wisdom decided that they wanted to bulldoze our community and then create the shopping mall. So as a kid, we started understanding it's fashionable to go to the shopping mall or downtown when we had our own ecosystem right there within our neighborhood, within our community. So we need to just start back building that infrastructure where people can safely walk out of their home next door and go to the grocery store. And the grocery store is not um, price prohibited, meaning that they should be able to get the same loaf of bread at the same price if they drove out to 10, 15 miles to a local Walmart. They should be able to get it there. To include drugstores and cafes. Um, we need to have in all of our communities that we left or that are shallow community or hollow communities. Um, we need to build those ecosystems back, and so those dollars um, can be there. But it cannot do that without a revived man understanding its role in his community. And so we can do that once we get an understanding as to who we and what we are built for.
So, what are the biggest financial misconceptions you see in Black and underserved communities?
One of the misconceptions is we can get rich quick, and the scheme that goes behind it. Everybody trying to get rich quickly. Um, you know, the value of the dollar uh, increases if you're making a profit. And only way you can make a profit is to have your own business. Profit is better than wages. And we need to train our children and reshape our mindset. You know, slave wages is not profit. It's barely enough to get by. we need to think about entrepreneurship and how we can build businesses, how we can hire employees, how we can be able to take home a profit. Again, that's the misconception is we can get money quick and not understanding that profit is better than wages.
So, how do you approach teaching financial literacy to individuals who feel overwhelmed or ashamed about their finances?
Yeah, so my approach, and I've been in cross tables where people, um, couldn't even read the context for which I was giving them, and I was able to make them comfortable by reading the material and giving them an understanding. But um, my approach is we all been there, and there are some things that we need to share in order to help them or get them to help me um, to help them move forward. And yet, these are very capable people. They just didn't have the framework. And one of the things that's missing or was definitely missed early on and still to this day is not teaching finance or financial literacy in grade school or in middle school. That is one of the best empowerment teaching that you can ever give somebody to teach them financial literacy. We missed that boat. So when people grow up as adults, they don't have an awareness, they don't have an understanding. And so money may come in, but it don't stay in. It's just constantly revolving and it's out the door without a concept of savings, without a concept of planning for the future, without a concept of building a nest egg. We need to have that conversation, regardless of whether or not it's embarrassing. We need to have that conversation to help move you along.
So, what are the foundational principles every family should understand about money?
The foundational principle is that money is a tool. And it's like, you know, if you need a screwdriver, you go get the screwdriver and use it for its purpose. You need a hammer, you go get a hammer and use it for that purpose. You know, rainy day money, we need to have rainy day money set aside. And that's the purpose for that. Um, we need to have legacy money, and that's the purpose for that. We need to have uh, money for when we start working, um, because you see where the system is changing Social Security. You know, we're asking the question whether it's going to be there. Well, that's just one form of the stool, but what about the other form of the stool? What about the retirement that you create for yourself on the job or in your business? What about the savings that you created for yourself? Um, and just having an expectation of money being a tool, what do you want that money to be used for?
How has the financial landscape changed since you began your career in '97?
Well, it changed drastically and it's changing all the time because legislators is always making new, improved changes. But not only that, um, the state of the world and where we at and how things are increasing in prices, price increase, all those things are changing. And so, where people are able to put buckets of money is also changing, um, whether it's on a tax basis or tax deferred, and how they're able to transfer their wealth. So you have to stay up on top of those things in order to understand. And so clients generally continue to keep me engaged on their finances and how they um, need to change or shape things as we move forward. But this is going to be an ever um, or never ending process on finance and how the landscape moves over time.
So, as we think about that, can you help our audience to understand when you were talking about tax deferred and you're talking about the here and now about taxation? Can you give us some examples as to what instruments, what products, what situations would you be alluding to?
Well, everybody's situation is different. And so I first get into that. And so, most people have a job and, they may be making contribution to their 401k. That is a tax deferred instrument. Um, However, that's one instrument that may help person move forward. And then that's a cap on that instrument that you can put as much as that cap every year to build your wealth. But there's also instruments such as Roth IRAs that's available, and that's a cap on that. And we're talking about gains that will be never taxed in the future if legislation continued to keep its position on Roth IRAs. Um, there's life insurance. You can build wealth into life insurance, which is a common misconception. A lot of people think that life insurance for death benefit only. Not necessarily so. And so, with the right vehicle, you can build wealth within that instrument um, to do the things that you want to do in the future. Uh, so that's several instruments out there that's by design is to help people move forward. But here's the one thing I would say because I ask people, what is your discretionary income? And I explain what's discretionary. Discretionary is this is money that you're not going to use. You paid off, you receive your income, you paid off all your expenses, and this is money just sitting there. And then I ask them the question, just say they tell me it's $500 a month. I say, well, how much money you have in your savings? And they tell me zero. Well, so you don't have discretionary income. Well, yeah, they do, but they misalign that income to do what they wanted to do with it. And so that money never sits parked in one space. So what do you want to do with that discretionary income? Do you want to just have the framework of spending it, or do you want to take some of it and grow it for a future purpose? So those may be some examples that your audience may look on as to how they build wealth um, in the future.
So, what role does mindset play in building long term financial stability?
It has a great impact. A person that knows how to hold on to a dollar and where to put it um, will have a greater mindset in building their financial wealth than someone that don't. And so we really have to have the mindset on how we're going to build wealth, what purpose that money is going to be used for, what tools that we're going to create so we can have um, that luxury that we're looking to have in the future.
So, can you tell us How do you help retirees prepare for a future that is increasingly unpredictable?
Well, pretty good actually. Again, um, there's a thing that called the floor. I help people understand what is their floor, meaning what are all your expenses? And once I understand what are all your expenses, your floor, then what is the discretionary amount that you need each month to just to be able to have a good time, just to be able to travel, just to be able to, move forward. Um, and then once we get an understanding of that, then we continue to allow the remaining of the asset to continue to grow in those pockets or in those buckets where they need to grow because cost of living is going up. Inflation is continually rising. And so they will have that steady flow of income in the future, um, as things change, and things always change.
So, what tools or strategies do you recommend for people trying to build wealth for the first time?
Yeah, so not necessarily a tool. I would actually recommend that they reach out and get them a financial advisor, someone that's on the team. And so, and this way, they can have a dedicated person to help them realize where they are and understand their goals, purpose in life, and help them get there. Again, it's not going to be um, a quick fix in a lot of cases. It's not going to be a get rich, but that would be the most powerful recommendation that I would have is for them to get somebody on the team as a financial advisor to help them move forward.
Here's the $1 million question. How can financial literacy be better integrated into schools, churches, and community programs?
That is $1 million question. Well, it really takes leaders um, doing what they do. Some do it a great job spiritually, but they don't know anything about finance. Um, some do it socially, but they don't know anything about finance. Um, every school, every church need to have a banker, need to have a financial planner, need to have an accountant, um, willing and dedicating themselves to share some literacy information within their field. Um, and if we don't do it from a school standpoint, like a public school system standpoint, we can still do it in our own community. We need to be able to share that, with people in our community because life has many foes. Spiritually, that's one fold. But how do I live in this society? Economic. I need economic. I need employment. Um, I need skills to help me survive. And I need to understand what to do with my money when I receive a paycheck and how I get those dollars working for me, not only today, but also in the future. So I didn't answer your question completely because that is $1 million question. I don't have all the answers, but I just give a couple of nuggets that we can um, pull from, and hopefully we can move forward through the ecosystem of life, moving and sync together fluently as a people who we are built for.
No, actually, no, you did a good job answering that question, even though it can't be a concrete answer as just as you were saying, is because there's so many things and there's so many tentacles that when you try to integrate something like that, especially when there are a great number of people that are not financially literate, but they need it, but it's difficult to teach it to them and to actually get it out because there's always barriers that pop up at the wrong time in the wrong place, especially in today's time.
Right. Thank you.
What is one financial lesson you believe every person should master before age 40?
Mm. I think they should master the value that they carry within themselves and the capacity to earn or their earnings value. They should be able to master that. In other words, um, know your worth. And so I see a lot of people who come out of um, graduate school or undergraduate or graduate school looking for a job and they can't find what they're looking for. So they're accepting whatever come. That diminishes your value. If your value in your job sector, say you make 100 grand, know your worth and make sure you're compensated 100 grand. Even if you have to move to Wyoming to get that job, know your worth and settle for nothing less. But if you want to become an entrepreneur, um, that's also knowing your worth because you can build and grow in any market. Um, so that's the value I think each person should know before age 40 to know their worth or to understand their earnings capacity, their true earning capacity, not just what somebody willing to pay, because that may not be your earning capacity. It may be a lot higher.
Right. And so let's transition over to Webtech Design LLC, your AI automation and digital systems platform. What inspired you to launch Webtech Design LLC?
So, I've been a consultant since 2004. I generally consult people across the table, understanding their business and what they're trying to achieve, and help them implement systems or connect them to people who they can leverage contractual relationship with. 2008, I did a stint with the federal government after Hurricane Katrina, trying to help people throughout the Gulf Coast get back into business or leverage their business with prime contractors. And so that aspect really came through COVID because you weren't able to meet, but you can still meet through Zoom. I leveraged that. And then when AI came out, I leveraged it even more in helping people grow their business. They may not can pay the advertising dollars that, maybe be on the air, do commercials, letters. Um, but I help them leverage AI to help um, give them identity to their business, move new customers into their pipeline.
So how do you help businesses leverage the AI automation?
So the AI automation is actually so everybody has workflows in their business. You get a mechanic. They got tons of phone calls, but he's under the car, working under the hood. You got a dentist office, they got patients, they got appointments. Instead of paying someone to sit at the desk and make those calls, my AI can actually make those calls, set the appointments, not only make the calls, but it can ask for your identification, um, or send you a bill via email. It can ask you, are you ready to pay your bill? You ready to they're ready to take that information as though they was a real person. And then on the back end, a lot of businesses fail to get reviews for their business. Reviews help with Google rankings. AI can go back and say, "Hey, how have we done on a scale of 1 to 10? How would you rate us in this area, this area, this area? What would you say about our ability to handle your problems or to service you in that area?" So, whereas you may consider paying someone $40,000 for that service to do that same thing. AI can do it for far less.
I always thought what was interesting about that is, now with AI just moving on this pace that's just second to none, because every second there's an update and a change, and it's like moving really, really fast. When you think about the businesses that you consult with, the ones that you try to help the most, what do you want them to get from using the AI automation and all of the tools that come with these different platforms?
Well, just to get an understanding as to where they are and where they want to be, because you can do it from a marketing standpoint, or you can do it from a workflow of service standpoint, um, and you can do it from a standpoint of getting new leads in the system. So, where do they want to be? But the one thing about the AI, it moves 24/7, even while you sleep. So, whether you need emails to be drafted and sent, or you need reminders sent to a customer that they have an appointment, or a reminder to yourself that you need to do certain things. AI can actually leverage all of those systems for you um, with just a blink of an eye. And if you want to do outbound calling, AI can do that. Give people an introduction as to who you are to see if they want to schedule an appointment. A lot of times when you go digitally on Facebook or social media and you fill out a form, it attaches it to a workflow to follow up with a phone call right away to see really what are your interests in moving forward with the appointment. So it's really where you want your business to be leveraged. Do you need more appointments through the door? Do you need to take care of these multiple phone calls? Um, Satisfy your customer? Do you need to do reminders? Um, so those sort of things are beneficial to the entrepreneur.
So, what are the biggest technology gaps you see in small businesses today?
Well, repeat that question. Sound like I missed a word.
What are the biggest technology gaps you see in small businesses today?
Um, the gap is really in not knowing what systems out there have the capability to do what they need to have done. And so it may not be a technology gap, but it may be a knowledge gap as to understanding what's out there today that can help me move a little bit further. Because there's so many on the platform, and you see it on TikTok, you see it on Instagram, and they don't have a real understanding of how to implement those tools to help them move forward. So it's really a knowledge gap, not so much as a technology gap.
So, how does AI change the way entrepreneurs operate?
It can change the way entrepreneurs operate because whereas these big businesses have those dollars to implement AI, if small businesses implement AI in their particular niche, they can be able to service a larger group of people with the ease of a small business looking and feeling like a much larger business. And so that way you'll be able to come to parity with some medium sized businesses, even though you may be a 1, 2, 3 man operation. Um, People may see you as, having a 15 to 20 man operation versus what you are. So,
So what about, those people that still are skeptical about AI and refuse to use it compared to those that use it, but they overuse it because they use it so much? And when I think about that, before you answer the question, when I think about that, I think so much about critical thinking. Is that taking away from people?
no. So the latter of your question is not taken away from people. We're in the information age. You got so much coming in to our system, um, and we can only retain a whole so much. In other words, you can create an archive in AI to it will always remember how that process worked. Whereas you may do it differently one day to the next, you know. And so to answer your first question, the people that decide not to use AI, those are the people that's going to get left behind. Um, because the people that are using it and using it correctly, they are advancing their business and they're able to move forward. And as you know, I do have a website on my AI platform or Webtech platform where they can actually literally talk to an AI bot about how I can help them. So, in other words, I don't have to get on the phone with every entrepreneur and say, hey, how can I help you? And I'll spend 15, 20, 30 minutes on that call. My AI bot can answer that 24/7 from my website.
Oh, wow. Now that's spectacular. I like that because now that definitely saves some time and it keeps you from having to do a task that's definitely time consuming.
And
And
it
I
can
think,
schedule an appointment for me.
oh wow, see, that's all excellent. That's all
Yep.
excellent. Um, so what misconceptions do people have about automation?
Well, that it may not be a tool for them. Um, and although it's a tool that can be used for anyone in the right capacity, there is, and I don't want to say this word, but I'm going to reframe it once I say it. There's a cost to AI, I mean, a financial cost to have an AI implemented in your business. But I want to take that word out and put it as an expense that would be tied to your revenue. So if you look at it as an investment that's tied to your revenue, then it would be almost like it really don't cost you anything because if I ask an entrepreneur like, okay, for one transaction, how much you make for doing one transaction, whatever it is. He said, well, when I finish this task, I generally make just say $1,000. Well, if that's the case, then implementing AI, if I help you get 1 or 2 more customers that you wouldn't get without it, then it's a no-brainer to implement because it don't cost you anything.
Right.
It's an investment tied to your revenue.
So, again, how do you help these business owners overcome the fear of new technology?
Well, I can only do that by presenting my business in such a way that can help them, and I show them. A lot of time, um, you know, I don't get a bite, uh, because they have the fear of the costs associated with it. But again, I reframe that as an investment, and not everybody's going to get it. Um, I see a lot of entrepreneurs want to grow, but they want free leads, or they want, free services, things like that. But if you want that ownership and you want it to happen for you, there is an investment in the process. So yes, I understand the question. Not going to get every entrepreneur on board, but as much as I can, I try to get them an understanding how this can work for them.
So, what role does digital infrastructure play in business growth?
Yeah, so that road is great, and the infrastructure is needed. If they want to survive in the business realm that we're in today, they're going to need that infrastructure to be there for them in such a way that AI and these tools are going to be profound in their business.
Dr. Grove, your camera is off. So, can you tell us, how do you merge financial strategy with digital transformation?
Okay, that question again.
How do you merge financial strategy with digital transformation? And your camera is still off.
Yeah, I'm pressing that button here, and it's not moving.
Is your screen black?
There we go.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't have an answer for that, unfortunately.
Okay.
All right,
So,
keep going on.
what industries benefit most from AI driven systems?
All industry benefit from AI-driven system, to include the church, could be AI-driven system. Did you get that answer?
Okay. Yes, I did. What is your long term vision for Webtech Design?
Well, my long-term vision is to um, build it into perhaps a 10 to 12 person um, um, business, whereas they're replicating the same thing I do with businesses. So my goal is to move from the entrepreneur to the medium and to the larger corporations, um, and helping them implement the AI automation, and being able to be a thought leader in AI automation and workflows, things of that nature.
And so, when we chatted earlier, and I mentioned to you that we do Black History 365, and I asked you who was the most influential person in your life and career, and you mentioned it was one of your teachers, Mrs. Willis.
Yes.
So, can you tell us, uh, first of all, when you think of Black history, What does Black excellence mean to you?
Black excellence means that we're actually continuing the process, again, as part of the ecosystem of self improvement, um, building those areas where we create brotherhood and sisterhood, creating those opportunities where we actually um, are coming together and creating long-term goals for our community, and we challenging one another to be better um, in the field that we're in. And so there's always room for growth. And one of the ways that the growth happens is that we challenge each other um, to excellence.
So, how has your journey contributed to the larger story of Black leadership and innovation?
Yeah, so my story again is really come out of the echoes of, the housing project, but really the struggles of a man that um, thought that he was capable and wanted to do better, and and found ways and systems that can help him do better. So we need to create that structure for other young men, other young women, so they can build upon um, themselves and move through the ecosystem um, in the way that we was able to do for ourselves.
So, under the influence of Miss Willis, what did she do at that time while you was in school that has influenced your life and career so that has made you such a successful individual?
Well, I don't say that I'm so successful, but I've managed some success over the years. So thank you for that. But Miss Willis actually told me who I was and who I was not, and she actually steered me away from the kids that she thought wasn't going to be what I was capable of being. And so um, no one ever done that for me before. Um, and look you in the eyes, and it's kind of scary when someone look you in the eye with such seriousness. I'm talking about it was between the sixth, seventh, eighth grade, and telling you that you have the capacity to be better than what your environment was trying to produce. And then it gets scarier even trying to live up to what she said, because you got the naysayers, and then you got the doubt within yourself. But that's one of the things she done for me, is just told me what I was built for, and told me what I was not built for. I always had an understanding and a memory of her sharing that with me.
Oh, wow. I'm more than sure that that's memorable.
Oh yeah.
So, as we go into closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement that you like to leave for our audience? Tell them how to connect with you via your social media, your websites, how to buy your books.
Okay. So hopefully, um, the one book you'll be able to share, the Amazon connection, the revival. But you can look at the revival, Leon Grove, on Amazon. Um, my website for Grove Financial Group is grovefinancialgroupinc.com. My Webtech Design company is d-webtech-design.com/AI-website. That is a great website. You can talk to my AI bot from your computer or from your phone, if you go on that website via your phone. One thing I like to leave to the audience, we're in an environment where there's a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, a lot of things that's going on. One of our responsibility is to work on the here and now. What can you work on right now, today, to help you meet the challenges of tomorrow? And in this book, if you get around to reading this book, I think, Charles, you have YouTube. You may actually have that book on that YouTube channel, whereas that book is available. Um, One of the things that you get out of the book is a blueprint. It don't give you all the answers, but it's a blueprint to start from to help you become a um, revived person, moving you from your capability to covenant. What is that space in between? What you're responsible for, accountability. What are you responsible for? Brotherhood. What are you responsible for? Black man, showing up as a father, being there for your children, being there for your family. What are you there for? Black women, to nurture and to take care of your man as he's on this journey. Um, this journey is nothing nice, but you got to have a mindset on how to move, and you'll understand the ecosystem as you move in that way towards your goal. So those are things that I want the audience to understand as they move forward.
Well, before I close, I've got a monologue that I'm going to read. But after I close the show, do you have a few minutes to stick around?
Oh, yes.
Well, those of you that are watching on all of our streaming channels, if you have not yet subscribed, especially to our YouTube channels and enabled all notifications, I am asking if you would please support us by subscribing and enabling all notifications. Therefore, you'll be able to catch the shows live, and you're also able to go back and watch all of our previous recordings of all the great information that's dealing with community buildings from all of our guests. So, in closing, Dr. Leon Grove's story is a reminder that reinvention is not a detour, it is a strategy. From the military to the classroom, from the pulpit to the boardroom, he has built a life anchored in service, discipline, and innovation. His work in financial planning and digital transformation reflects a commitment to helping families and businesses build sustainable futures. He stands as an example of what it means to evolve without losing your foundation, to grow without abandoning your calling, and to lead with both wisdom and compassion. This has been episode 67 of America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, and as always, stay informed, stay inspired, and stay empowered. You guys have a great evening, and please come back and see us tomorrow evening as we have another